for the first 2 years that we hung out, a lot of those visits, Dad would be upset. Even like right when I picked him up, he was already upset. And we had plans to go do all these things. We used to do so many different things in one visit. We would go out to eat. We would go grocery shopping. We would go to Starbucks. We would go to the pet store to visit Bunny. And there would be a lot of times where we weren't able to go anywhere or do anything until he was in a better mood, because he wasn't going to enjoy any of that until we broke him out of those intrusive thoughts that he was having. So what we would do was I would have him come in the car with me, and we would sit in the car, sometimes for half an hour, sometimes for an hour, sometimes for over an hour, just him and I going back and forth, trying to get to the root of what is really bothering him. And he would be talking to me about these illogical things that he was thinking about and that he couldn't stop thinking about. And I came up with the strategy where this isn't about that thing that you're talking about. This is about the fact that you have these intrusive thoughts. The intrusive thoughts were the issue, not this illogical issue that you're coming up with in your mind. It's the fact that your mind is against you. And I was trying to work with him on the strategy of, one, acknowledging that he's having these intrusive thoughts, two, trying to cut them off from the start. As soon as you possibly can, cut those intrusive thoughts off, because they're not true and they're only going to harm you. They don't want what's best for you. I want what's best for you, okay? And that's stuff that I would tell them all the time. So one, I just really want you to acknowledge that you're having those intrusive thoughts, like, oh my God, like they're happening. You need to acknowledge the fact that they're happening so you don't go down further, deeper into that rabbit hole. So acknowledge it, cut it off as soon as possible. Get it out of your head as soon as possible. Say, no, I'm not going to think about that. And I was trying to convince him that he did have control over his thoughts. And then the third thing that I was working on him with was replacing those thoughts. Once you cut off those negative thoughts, replace it with positive thoughts. And I was trying to give him all these different resources to where he, even if he couldn't think of positive things on his own, he could reach for these resources, like that self-help journal I gave him, the activity binder I gave him. I made him a big poster of all of our pictures on him. He had a lot of different things that he could reach for to give him positive thoughts, and I wanted him to practice on his own. I was able to think of a lot of different positive things that he could think of, but I was always pushing him to think of those on his own, because I wanted him to practice having these positive thoughts, so that way if I'm not around, if he's struggling on his own, he has that practice and those resources to fight it on his own. So the thing about my dad, and that's something that's very true for a lot of us, is that we are in the habit of having negative thoughts, of thinking of the negative, of harping and focusing on the negative things, and not only just having negative thoughts, but allowing them to go from one to the next, to go from a little thought is now deeper and deeper and deeper, and aiding that thought, making everything worse in your head. And my dad has decades and decades of making that a habit and just going immediately to that. It's almost automatic, where it's just negative. So my focus was to try to break that habit and form a new habit, practice now doing the same thing but with positive thoughts. And that's something that I still to this day work with him on. We all experience it. We all go through those kind of things, and it's just automatic. It's a habit for us. And the only way we're going to break it is if we practice and change that habit into the positive stuff. And that's something that even I had to learn and I had to work on. And still to this day, I'm really trying and I'm working on that for myself as well.